This is like doing amateur hour or something. What show am I on here? You might want to take the bass out of your tone. I'm not sure you know who you're talking to here, but I've never backed down from anything. What?
So you're leaving now because of what reason? That was years ago. I watched the tape. I was a jackass. Meanwhile, I'm back in the octagon. We'll meet the competitors in a second. Chael's on the show today, one of the best talkers around, and Dr. Karen MacNeill, a performance psychologist. Perfect person to have on the show. Meanwhile, I'm back in the octagon. This is for you, Chael. Let's meet the competitors. Wearing all brown from Atwood, Ontario, Wrigley Landsberg. And wearing the black and the white, he is the challenger today. Ladies and gentlemen, he is stepping up in weight class. Looks a little slim. That's Chael Landsberg. And boys, one more thing. It's time! I don't even know what to say. So we taped that open, I guess, a couple of hours ago. So just follow me through on this. So we sit down. I sit down here at my kitchen table at 4:30 Eastern time in anticipation of going live at 5 o'clock. And Dr. Karen MacNeill clicks on, and there she is. And we have a nice little conversation. And then I guess about 10 minutes later, Chael came on, and we have a great conversation. And he's engaging with the doc, and it's just going really well. And then he goes, wait a second here. Are we not on? I said, no, we're not on. It's not 5 o'clock yet. And we're just having a casual conversation. And that was it. He was gone. Have not seen him since. We waited and we waited and we waited. And there is no Chael Sonnen. And the most bizarre thing is that I got to know him because he walked off. And it's the only time in my career that's happened. And now, here we are today, and I'm sure somehow in someone messed this up for him, because I can't imagine he was like pissed off at me for it. He's not here. We're hoping he joins throughout the show, but if not, what are you going to do? Karen MacNeill, you are many things, including a doctor. So Dr. Karen MacNeill, thank you for joining us, performance psychologist, mental health counselor with the Canadian Olympic Committee, and the co-founder of Headversity. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
What did you make of that? The conversation that, because we were all talking to each other, and, I was so encouraged by the way you two guys were relating that I said, okay, well, why don't you guys ask each other questions? Because Chael's a great host. He asks great questions. Did you see anything going on?
No, exactly. We were connecting on Ozark and on all the common things we're doing with having both young kids. And then all of a sudden he disappeared. So my only assumption is scheduling or misunderstanding of where we're to be when. And here we are.
It's just so weird because I went off the top of the show and I said, you know what, looking back at that, actually, we were watching some of that show as we were cutting it for the Open, and Casey was watching and Corey was cutting, and Casey goes, well, you know what, you were a little bit of a dick to him. And I realized when she said that it was true, that this was largely my fault that he was mad. So then I come clean and said, well, you know what, I actually was probably to blame for that. And now here we are again. Oh my gosh. So Karen, you're a psychologist. You deal with athletes, you deal with performance, and you deal obviously with mental health issues. It's COVID-19, the pandemic that has really crossed the world. And following behind it, in my mind, and you tell me if you agree, is a pandemic of mental health challenges.
Yeah, I think, when we look at the environment, high uncertainty, high unpredictability. And so that's going to create an emotional reaction in anyone. I think the other thing that's different than this is it is novel. It's the novel virus. There is no playbook. We haven't experienced anything like this before. So people are trying to look back for templates on how do we navigate, but we don't know what the finish line looks like. We don't know what this is going to look like. So I think the unpredictability, the uncertainty, the lack of that ability to get a sense of control can produce some of those emotional reactions that you've described.
Right. So what I'm wondering is if you see it the way I've been describing it, and I'm obviously the layman here, right? All I am is a mental health observer, a mental health patient, and an advocate for people with mental health. But what I've heard over the last 3 weeks is this crazy amount of anxiety and depression from people who've never felt anything like that before. Are you seeing that? Am I accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing a few things. So the individuals that I would have seen already that already have pre-existing mental health conditions, some of those are being exacerbated and so elevated. A few reasons for that. Once again, the unpredictability, the uncertainty of the situation, in addition to we're taking away everyone's coping mechanisms. So connection with loved ones and friends and family, being able to exercise and have their routines. So there is definitely an influx of that. And I think the people that, are struggling now that don't have the pre-existing, it's a human normal emotional reaction to this very unprecedented, uncertain circumstance.
Okay, so let's assume that let's call this jumping the line, because I'm sure with a person like you who's top in your field, it's you probably got to wait a little time to get for an appointment, and when I say a little time, it may be a lot of time, but I'm cutting the line. And I'm barging into your office and I'm saying, Karen MacNeill, doctor, I need your help right now. I have never experienced anything like this. I can't sleep very well. I'm agitated all the time. I feel like I'm not even hungry ever. I'm so on edge. I've never felt this before. Help me. What can I do?
Yeah, and so someone coming into my office with those kind of things is, first of all, even as you describe that, there's a sense of panic, and the panic wasn't necessarily about the symptoms. It was about the unfamiliarity of the symptoms, and I don't have control over them. So the very first thing we do is we normalize and say, Michael, emotional reaction is part of the human experience, and what your experience is normal and it's valid. And so I think the first thing we need to do is acknowledge those emotions and accept them. But the trick is there's a thing called emotional agility. And that's your ability to tolerate that emotional experience. Many people have different levels of tolerance. So we have to do that by seeing our emotions as data. Those are telling you something. So Michael, let me put it back on you. When you're feeling that anxiety and you can't sleep, what do you think that is trying to tell you in terms of what you need or what's important to you?
Okay, well, I have to kind of make that up, right? Because the description I had was not actually of me, but was of someone who might typically be arriving at mental health for the first time. So my answer to you would be like, what is my body, what is my brain telling me if I can't sleep?
Or what's the need? What do you think this friend of yours, what do you think that person who may be experiencing? So for example, someone coming in, it might be telling them that they're feeling out of control, that they're feeling that they're feeling overwhelmed by this and they need more certainty. And so it's helping them navigate. It's helping them understand what this information is telling them. They're feeling fear because they're feeling really unsafe. And there is, when we look at the numbers, but we got to focus on the facts then. So when we really look at the numbers and what their fear is telling them, which is the data, we don't want that emotion to be a director and directing their behavior and making them shut down and all those kind of things.
So how often are you having this conversation? I would imagine pretty regularly because I'm having it a lot and no one's turning to me for my expertise.
That's right. And I have a few roles. So as a psychologist at Copeman Healthcare, I'm also with the Canadian Olympic team, and I have my athletes who are going through this change. And then at Headversity, where we really have a digital platform to help resource people and develop the tools and skills to help them navigate all this uncertainty. So I am embedded in this on a daily basis.
So you mentioned to me that you're going to be traveling across the country, right? Meeting with athletes and trying to help them with their current situation, which is similar to most of us, right?
Yeah, so what we're doing across the country, so with the Canadian Olympic Committee, they've done a phenomenal job, and they've brought me on to really take care of all things to do with mental health, mental performance, and anything that's around a crisis, and it's an at Games role. And so as a result, what we've done to help the national sport sport organizations and all the athletes dealing with this is we've formed a task force. So it's the COVID-19 mental health task force, and that's with a group of partners. We've got the COC, the OTP, the Copson Network, Game Plan, the Canadian Centre for Mental Health and Sport. And so what we've done is we've band together a group of mental performance consultants, is what they're called, that is associated with our Canadian teams. And we're identifying the needs. We're making recommendations, and we're developing resources just to help our athletes, our coaches, and our sport partners.
You know, this is a time that I think it's one of the only times in history, maybe since World War II, where we all were in the same position. You can't get away from this. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what your station in life. It doesn't matter whether you live in a big city or a small town. We all face the risk of COVID-19, and we all have to be responsible for our actions. And I'm wondering how you see that manifesting itself. Like everybody, literally everybody, is in the same boat.
Yeah, and this is, once again, the silver lining is it is the first time in our world where we all need to fly in formation. We all need to band together, and we all need to do our part. And so I think that's one thing, when we talk about how do people navigate this, is it's to link it to, your own purpose or your own part in it and what you're doing. So absolutely. Even if we just look at the microcosm of sport, we have all these different sport partners. We are now banding together to work on this issue, which is improving communication, breaking down barriers. So I see that in multiple places, and hopefully that will continue after all this is over.
Here's a question we got on one of our platforms. Get Karen to tell you about Brave New Workplace. What is that?
Our Brave New Workplace, yes. And so when we're looking at the Brave New Workplace, it is the new reality in terms of what we have to deal with. And so this being forced into this position where we have our distributed workforces and we're all working from home, we need to be ready in terms of the technology. And so if we have to be at home, then we're ready there. In terms of handling all the multiple emails, we have those communication channels. We know how to connect in ways outside of the interpersonal or the individual connection. And so I think with the Brave New Workplace, technology is going to be a forefront from that. And that's one thing at Headversity, having a mental wellness digital platform that people, it's in their fingertips to help them build their mental health and their resilience is going to be, I think, this new wave.
Karen, here's another question for you on Facebook. And so my daughter, Casey, is writing them down and holding them up on a board. And Case, help me out here. Advice to alleviate my grown daughter. Is grown spelt GROWD? My grown daughter. Oh my God. 4.0 grade point average. Must have been a crappy school. My grown daughter's stress level. I get the feeling she is overwhelmed with being a frontline worker. What advice do you have?
Being overwhelmed with being a frontline worker? What's the advice?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I think those frontline workers, when you think about what they're facing day in and day out, and not only the volume of the work, but in addition to some of those risks. So I think when we look at those individuals is number one, first and foremost, is what you need to do to make yourself feel safe in those moments. So that would be a piece of it. I think, there's all the things they need to do at work. It's when they're coming home. What are they doing to process, to connect, to almost debrief their day, so that doesn't carry over with them in the follow up to that. I think creating boundaries. And, it's really easy to get into crisis mode. I have to help everyone else. But we all have heard the old adage, put the oxygen mask on yourself first, and really be able to recognize when you need those breaks and when you need to create some of those boundaries. And then lastly, almost psychological hygiene. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing your mindfulness training? Are you, managing your own negative thoughts and doing those calming strategies, et cetera?
Casey just wrote me another message. Let's see a case. This from my wonderful daughter. Can you read that? You don't have to read it, but can you read it?
Earmuffs. All I have to say is earmuffs.
Okay. No, that was for me, not for you.
I know.
I'm just wondering, when your daughter is all grown up, whether she will respond to you the same way. Okay. I want to go talk about semantics. And by the way, Chael Sonnen was supposed to be on the show. He was actually on the show. We were doing a sound check. He came on at, I don't know, about 4:35 maybe. And it was go time at 5:00. At about 4:50, Chael said to me, wait, we're not doing the show? And I said, no, not yet. Like, not till 5:00. Gone. I don't mean, hey, you know what? I'm going to get up and I got a couple of minutes to have a coffee or whatever. Gone. No sign of him. No idea where he is. And it's bizarre because the most famous thing I've ever done in my life is host a show where Chael Sonnen walked off. He was mad at me, rightfully so, and he walked off. And then we got to be buddies. I thought, we are. I don't know where he is, man. I don't know where he is. It's bizarre. If he does make an appearance, we'll put him on. If not, we're having more fun with Karen MacNeill than we ever would with Chael Sonnen. Who needs him? You know, who really does? What about language? I know that when we were having this conversation, there's a couple of things that you don't like. And one of the terms is social distancing. We've had numerous doctors on this show, and I think most of them really don't like the term.
Yeah, and I think social distancing tell us that we have to deconnect from our social world. And when you look at isolation and the negative impacts of that, or social isolation, there's some very negative consequences. So I think you've heard the term physical distancing. Is yes, I need to stay my time away, but actually the connection is incredibly important. Michael, I almost talk about it like your own internal board of directors. Okay, so you're going to have certain needs. You're going to have emotional needs. You're going to have technical needs. You're going to have maybe financial needs. And so identifying individual supports that can meet those needs, because it's not about all the people around you. You can be in a crowded room and feel alone. It's about your perception of support. So for me, emotional needs, maybe I'll go to my husband. Technical needs, I'll go to a colleague. The challenge is when I use my husband for all of my needs, because he can't answer my technical questions and we both get frustrated. So I think that whole idea on that connection, getting the support you need in addition to just that personal connection with loved ones and friends.
My wife's husband is capable of doing all of those things, just so you know. My wife's husband. Wait, that would be me.
There you go.
Other phrases. What's wrong with saying mental health, mental illness? What's wrong with those two?
You know what, personally, I don't think there's anything wrong. I think you just need to really clarify what's meant by those, right? And so when we look at mental health, it's the capacity to think, feel, and act in ways that'll enhance your enjoyment of life and cope with the many challenges. Mental illness, on the other hand, is basically a medical condition. And that's what we got to be really clear about, that disrupts an abilities to think clearly, feel good, and meet life's demands. And so it's just those nuances of that. And then we'll throw in the term mental fitness. That's my world, with elite performers. And that's that ability to regulate how you think, feel, and behave, act in consistent and purposeful ways, and cope with the many demands. So there's some nuances to that. I think it's, once again, what's relevant to that individual and how we're using that language in a sensitive and acceptable way.
Karen, let's go to what got you into this field. I know that when I asked you a bit about your past, you said that you played field hockey in Amsterdam, and that earlier experiences in your life directed you to go into psychology and do what you're doing. What was your experience that made you think, okay, I want to work in this area?
Yeah, and so I played all sports throughout my kind of growing up, and then it was field hockey that chose me. And I spent many years working hard to be able to wear the maple leaf on my back and get on Team Canada. And so finally, I get on the national team, and it was my first tour, and it happened to be in Amsterdam. And we arrive at the field, and I'd spent all the time training my craft. I trained my body. But when I got on that field for the first time, I was a hot mess. And I had a mini panic attack. And I lasted maybe about 4 or 5 minutes, and I got yanked off. So my very first moment to represent my country, and I blew it. And so as I was consoling myself in the Heineken tent, I thought, never again would I let my mind be a thief of my big moment. And so I've made that my life's work. Developing others, building mental fitness, building resilience, so people can be the best version of themselves on a consistent basis.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you a much tougher question, and it cuts right to the heart of life, I think. Why is it that in field hockey, you use those stupid sticks that are curved and it's a crappy ball? Why? I mean, it could be such a good game. Why do you have those stupid sticks?
I know. So 2 reasons, Michael. 1, tradition. Okay. So that's how they done it. That's what they want to do it. Number 2, safety. And so we have a one-sided stick. It comes back. If people were swinging from both ways and we're down low without protection equipment, we're going to get nailed in the face. And so we need it one-sided so that everyone knows where the stick's flying and you can just play without getting your teeth knocked out.
Yeah. Now, if you were in charge of the sport, would you say, you know what? We could probably, we could make this sport more dynamic, and we could allow our amazing athletes to maybe show off their amazing skills a little bit more. Would you change the rules?
I'd challenge that, because what I would suggest is, because there's only one side, you have to use the backside. And so there's more technical skill involved and more creativity in trying to adapt to what you're given. So let's look at our current situation in the pandemic right now. We have to use all those skills, all the different ways to adapt and react to what we're given. And so it's not changing the stick, Michael. It's actually building our own abilities so that we can navigate the environment or the context in which we're provided.
Yeah, I still think it's a crappy stick. I don't like the ball. And I think you're just very good at creating debate and arguments. I don't even know if you actually believe what you just said. This is a really weird time for most of us. And one of the things that we all have is something that we can't do without. What would you say is your can't do without thing during the pandemic?
I just noticed that I just took a drink and I didn't even mean to, but it was an automatic and I saw it on, and so I think this pink Yeti cup that has my warm hot tea, it's been my constant companion. I don't know if it's kind of like my Linus and his blanket, but this seems to be coming with me everywhere.
But it doesn't always have warm hot tea in it, obviously. I mean, unless you have a magical cup. Is that cup have magic in it?
When you have a supportive, loving husband that will fill it every now and again for you, it just seems to get real refilled.
Right, but I did notice that you did say that your husband can't be all things to you, and I'm going to hang that on him the first time I meet him for sure. Do you have an isolation wardrobe that you go to, that you turn to? And I'll let you think about that for a second and tell you that one of the things that I'm very proud of is that I have not worn pants with a button now in 30 straight days. It's an amazing achievement, Karen. And I like to think, as I've said before, actually sitting right here, that if I should happen to die from COVID-19, I know this sounds twisted, but they got to bury me in sweatpants. No buttons for me. I want that streak to continue. What's yours?
You know what? Mine's variety, and it's mixing it up. It's, when I need the comfort clothes, I throw those on. When I'm feeling not as great and maybe getting stuck in the rut of things, then I go dress it up. I'll have a shower, do the hair, and put on some nice clothes. So I kind of mix it up depending on what I need in the moment.
I just got or Casey just showed me one that everything was spelled perfectly. She's really grown up since the start of the show. And the question is, will there be PTSD after this crisis is gone, whenever that is?
Yeah, and so for our listeners, just for those who don't know the acronym PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and it will occur when we experience a traumatic event that is potentially life-threatening. So you know what the answer is I think we will see some of that, absolutely. Once again, it's depending on individuals' experience and what they have gone through. And so that's why, we know mitigation to that is that ability to normalize those reactions and understand that the heightened heart rate or the feeling of overwhelm or these avoidant behaviors, those are normal things to this abnormal situation. So normalizing that for people, in addition to that ability to process their own experience, and kind of get clarity of the facts, get a coherent story in terms of what's going on, but really focus on those facts. Because our brain, it is, the overly anxious brain will overestimate danger and underestimate our ability to cope with it. So we really need to do some work on managing that narrative.
You're great at this. I speak to a lot of professionals, obviously. I see professionals professionally. And you're really good at this because it's hard to give people suggestions on how to better manage their life at this time. Outside of the obvious stuff, it's really difficult. And I thought you did it amazingly well. Thank you for being so patient with us. And thank you for giving us your time and your expertise and letting my buddy who had that question for you jump to the front of the line and barge into your office and ask you that question. You are very understanding.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And just thank you to you, Michael. The sick, not weak, I've used that in presentations before. And I think just what you're trying to do with talking about this, getting people engaged, and knowing that, hey, we need to take care of all facets, not only our physical health, but also our mental health. So thank you for all that you're doing for all of us.
Next time I'm in Calgary, and God knows when that will be, because unless Calgary's on my street, I'm probably not going to see it in the near future. But you could be in Toronto, so I'll look forward to meeting you face to face. And thanks again.
That. Yeah, thanks you very much for having me.
Okay, that's Karen MacNeill, Dr. Karen MacNeill, who really seems to be able to create useful information from a craft that sometimes is not that dispensable. But she did a great job with it. So, where's Chael? What happened? It's so ironic that the guy that walked off on me that I'm most famous for, I would say not a week goes by, even this long after, that someone doesn't go, hey, that Chael Sonnen was pretty pissed off at you. It's bizarre. And he and I got to be good buddies, and I asked him if he would do this, and he said in a heartbeat. Well, he was only here for a heartbeat. So I'm a little worried about him, to be honest with you. So I don't want to act too pissed off, but I'm a little worried about him because he's not here. And, it seems to be out of character, although I'm maybe someone who should know that it's not totally out of character for him. Okay, well, we got to brighten things up a little bit. And we have asked Chael Sonnen, actor, comedian, mental health sufferer, mental health advocate, who is, like most of us, strapped to his house in his chair, but he has got a webcam. So we thought, entertain us a little bit. And, well, that's what he did.
This is Chael Sonnen for Isolation Nation. Yes, restaurants. How do you support them at this difficult time? Well, you could order takeout. That's a great idea, but what if the restaurant is closed? Here's my option. Break in and make yourself a delicious meal. And leave a nice note saying, hey, miss you. It's certainly not supporting them in the fiscal sense, but it is letting them know that.
Oh, that's really funny. Made me laugh. Now I'm back to being pissed off. Like I said, I'm sorry if you tuned in to see Chael Sonnen. I'm sure he's going to go, Michael, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I hate myself for doing this. Oh my God, Michael, how can I make it up to you? Let me come back and let me do the show and let me show you that I'm the guy that you want me to be. That's the way I think it's going to unfold. Case, any word? Not really? No. Okay. Well, you'll see him sometime. If I have to go to Portland and drag him out of his house, that's not going to happen. At the end of every show, I try to impart a little bit of my wisdom. That would be a little bit arrogant to say, but I'm going to say what I've learned. And I've learned a lot of things that can be summed up in one line or sometimes in one hashtag. And today I'd like to leave you with, I win because I choose to fight. So when I wake up in the morning, I can be really struggling with depression, lack of self-esteem, no desire whatsoever to go on with my day. But I go on with my day. And at the end of my day, even if I don't feel better, even if I didn't achieve anything, I won because I chose to fight. And I could be proud of myself for going about my business, even though the easiest thing for me would have been to miss everything and to give up on myself. I win because I choose to fight. By the way, thanks to Janssen for giving us this opportunity. They said a couple of months ago, they said, hey, do something good. And we had a whole plan, and then COVID-19 hit, and then our plan shifted. And now here we are doing this show daily with today, Dr. Karen MacNeill. So where's Sonnen? Your guess is as good as mine. Where are you, Chael? Is this payback for me being a jerk all those years ago? If so, I respect that. If not, hope you're okay. We'll see you tomorrow. I think. I'm not sure of anything right now. Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow for sure. Probably.